Hey guys, Matt the Greeter here. I'm gonna check in with you. Check out that moon, huh? Isn't that beautiful? Looks like it's wearing a winter hat. But it's cold out there in space. It's cold out there. You gotta put a hat on, even on the moon. Make sure you wear your hat. I'm gonna catch a cold. I'm waiting for this guy to go by. Anyway, pretty cool truck. What is that? You turning? There we go. Alright guys, let's hit the road. It's hot. It's hazy, hot, and humid. We got a potential hurricane on the way. I've already filmed 3 videos talking about Henri, and whether he's going to make his appearance or not. And I didn't like any of them. Rambling. So instead, I'm going to tell you about another Henri. One that I actually knew. Henri is French for Henry. It's funny because when we say like this is blah 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 for that, it's like, well, Henri is Henri. It's not French for anything else. It's Henri. Like that's the dude's name. It's not Henry just said in another language. No, that's the language they speak. It's Henri because that's what his name is. So an Henri that I knew, whose name was actually Henri, was Henri Jobert. And Henri Jobert was my guitar teacher when I was a little kid. So, when I was a little kid, my parents said, hey, you want to play an instrument? And I said, yes. And they said, what do you want to play? And I said, drums. And they enthusiastically said, no. See, my dad was an English teacher. Fine, no problem there. My mother, however, was a proofreader. And a proofreader, you know, they get the book before it's even a book. And they get it's like things like galley sheets, I think it's called, and they're these big sheets of paper, and the pre-book is on those pieces of paper, and it's rife with all kinds of mistakes. You name it, from spelling to context to font size to grammatical to line spacing. I mean, there's so much that goes into the printing of a well-crafted book that just goes totally unnoticed by most people. But so my mom was doing this meticulous work, and I was a loud kid. What do you mean was a loud kid? All right. I was louder than I am now, if you can believe that, and I made noises all the time. And so I had to get out of the house. But anyway, drums, no, that wasn't going to happen in our house. And I didn't know it at the time, but drums are pretty expensive too. I didn't know that at the time. So I settled on guitar. My dad played the guitar. I was like, yeah, fine. We'll try guitar. I wanted to play electric guitar. But back then they still said like, well, if you want to play electric guitar, you need to start on acoustic. Well, you know who says that? Acoustic guitar salesman. If you want to play electric guitar, you should get an electric guitar. Don't start with come on. That's like saying, you want to ride a motorcycle? Well, you got to start with a scooter. What? Who says? All right? So anyway, I got the guitar, and so we met this guy, Henri Jobert, from Whitman, Massachusetts, and he was my guitar teacher. He was one of those guys, man. He was a maestro, and did the Segovia method and all of that stuff. And so in his shop, he sold instruments, guitars, violins, harmonicas, and whatever. And his wife Lee sold all kinds of like homemade, like blended. She made her own tea blends and stuff, and herb blends and stuff. So the smell of, you know, handcrafted wooden instruments and the various potpourris, although good, I mean, potpourri is the stuff that's going bad and you warm it up because you get the last good smells out of it or something, you know, for you derivation snobs. But it was like that wood, you know, just the smells in that place. It was unmistakable and probably not recreatable. I didn't practice, so I was one of those guys. I had to develop a quick ear because, you know, the first chords I learned were A, D, H, D. And I had those chords down, A, D, H, D. So I wasn't practicing. So when I would get to the lesson, I would talk to Henry. Hey, Henry, can you show me how you play this piece? You know, I want to see how you play it as compared to how I play it. You know, and I think he knew that what I was actually saying was I didn't practice, and I'm just trying to rip it off you real quick. But he'd play it for me. But then he'd tell stories. And I learned more about guitar and life from Henry's stories than I ever did from any of his actual musical lessonry. Just sometimes, guys, I don't know if you find this to be true, being in the room with greatness, rubbing elbows with greatness, listening to people who are great and doing great things, sometimes that's enough. And he say, you do the dishes at home. When you go home, do the dishes. It's good for your hands. You got good hands for guitar. But I want you to go home and do the dishes for your mother. It's good for guitar. Well, I don't think doing dishes is particularly good for playing guitar, but you know what it's good for? Learning discipline, learning how to take care of yourself, learning self-reliance, learning how to serve others. Now, I was not a good dishes doer, you know, but I could mow the heck out of the lawn. Like the yard work is where I had it down pat. So I like the yard work and the landscapey sort of stuff. So forgive me, old Henry, but I didn't do the dishes much. But I did a lot of yard work, and so I may have become a better guitar player taking lessons from Henry, but the biggest lessons taking lessons from Henry were life lessons, learning about his time in the big cities across the world, learning to talk about French chefs sometimes. I mean, no end to it, you know. Henri, so Henri Jobert, and whether we get a hurricane or not here in New England, you know, that's a special name for me, Henri, and it's not French for anything, it's his name. We get a little Anglo-centric around here sometimes, and I just think other cultures are so beautiful, especially when together with my own culture, you know. I'm one of those guys, like, I don't need my stuff all separated on the plate. You can just put it all together and for crying out loud, put a good hot sauce on top of it all, you know. Life for me is better when it's diverse. And I thank Henri Jobert for teaching me about life, tricking me by thinking I was learning about guitar, but in reality I was learning some really good stuff about life itself. So anyway, guys, there's that beautiful moon again. I'll check in with you soon. I'll let you know how the hurricane goes, or goesn't. Whether it does or doesn't, as the case may be here in New England. But whether it does or doesn't, you know, I plan to be back out on the bike as soon as the roads are clear. And I'll check in with you again real soon. All right, guys, don't forget to practice that guitar. Don't forget to do the dishes. And if there's someone who's got those skills and gifts and talents that you want, just be near them. Put yourself in the vicinity. Put yourself in their context. And man, the learning just happens on its own. All right, guys, I'll check in with you soon. Matt the Greeter.